All right, so it's time to add in some vertical shifts with our trig graphs that we are graphing, trig functions that we're graphing. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at here is I just want to jump back to that equation. So this is the same equation that's written on your last page. I forgot to write it here. Okay, so we said that we did A, which was our amplitude, times the sine of B theta minus C plus D, right? So we used A for our amplitude, we used B to help find our period. Okay, when you're looking at these functions, to figure out any vertical shifts, you always want to go to the end, okay? This guy right here, that is going to tell you if you have any kind of a vertical shift, okay? So that's going to be our key thing that we're going to add in today. So when you're doing these vertical shifts, what you're going to do is start by drawing in the midline, okay? And then your amplitude barriers, amplitude, how about boundaries? That's not really the technical term for it, but you know what I mean, right? Those little dashed lines that we've been drawing in. We're going to start by drawing those in, okay? Now, previously when we did our amplitude, if this was a 3 here, it would just go between 3 and -3. Well, once you start messing up your vertical shifts, that's going to move your midline and that will change. So it won't be 3 and -3. It'll be 3 above and below your midline. All right, so let's look at an example here. So this guy here, so the first thing that I'm going to look at here is I'm going to look at this number at the end. Okay, so this -2, that tells me that I'm going to have a vertical shift of -2. Okay, so the entire graph is going to slide down to. So where my midline used to be on the x-axis, it's now been slid down and is going to be here. Okay, so that's my new midline. So then when we go to look at the amplitude, right, this guy right here is my amplitude. So my amplitude is 3. I'm not going to be at 3 and -3, right, because then my midline wouldn't be in the middle. Okay, so when you figure out your amplitude, you want to go 3 above and 3 below this line here. So I'm at -2, so I'm going to go up 3. That would be here. Okay, and then down 3 would be here. You can also think of doing -2 plus 3 and then -2 minus 3. Okay, so now we've got our new midline and our new amplitude boundaries. And from there, everything's the same. I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. Remember, this guy is the same as 1/3 theta. So to calculate my period, right, I'm in radians. So I'm going to do 2 pi divided by 1/3. So that's the same as 2 pi times 3/1, which is 6 pi. Okay, so there's my period. So when I go to graph this, sine graph, sine starts at the center. Well, when we say center, it's not going to be 0, 0 anymore because we shifted our graph, right? That's now my center, if you will, right? That's where my 0, 0 would have been, but we shifted it down a bit. Okay, so here's my starting point. And then at 6 pi, here's my end point. I'm going to be back on the midline. And in a sine graph, halfway between that, you'll also be on your midline. Okay, and then my halfway between point here is going to be up top. It's kind of between two blocks. Halfway between these is going to be down here, and again, sort of between two blocks. All right, and then that's all the information that we need. So every like block and a half, you shift positions. So there's my graph. Okay, so this really is not much different from what we've been doing. We're just adding in a little bit of a shift. All right, so then this guy over here, same deal. So the first thing I want to look at is look at this guy right here. Okay, my vertical shift is going to be +2. So this time I'm putting my midline up here at +2. No big deal. Okay, this 3 at the front, that's my amplitude. So my amplitude is 3. So I'm going to go 3 above and below that line. So I'm going 3 up from there and then 3 down from there. There's my boundary lines. Okay, to find my period, this one's also measured in terms of pi. So I'm going to do 2 pi divided by, this is like a 1/4, right? So 2 pi divided by 1/4 is the same as 2 pi times 4/1, or 8 pi. All right, and then cosine graph. Cosine starts at the top, and then at 8 pi, I'm going to be back at the top. Halfway between 0 and 8, 4, that's going to be down at the bottom. Don't fall into the trap of putting along the top with those two. It doesn't do that. Okay, and then halfway between here is where I'm going to cross my midline. Halfway between there is my midline. Okay, and then that gives me enough to establish a pattern to do some more points. And there we go. Again, nice and curvy. You don't want these to be like V shapes. You want them to be U shapes. All right, and that's it. That's how you graph trig functions adding in vertical shifts. So not that much different from what we've been practicing. You just have this one extra little piece.